Welcome to the Food Bloggers Table. Pull up a chair for authentic conversations and actionable advice from fellow food bloggers and industry experts. I'm your host, Jen, and I create custom food blogs designed to earn top-tier ad income. Join us now at the table as we break bread and build brands. What made you decide to start a food blog at 50 years old?
First of all, the internet wasn't a thing until my youngest son was like 1 or 2. And so, yes, it was foreign to me until I guess really I've only had it about half my life. And so the reason I wanted to start a blog was I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. And I worked when the kids were really little for a few years. And my husband and I used to joke that I would go back to work when my youngest went to school. And it was funny because I didn't start the blog, which is my job, until he was a junior in high school. And we used to laugh or joke that it would have been when he went to like kindergarten or first grade. And so I told my husband, I'm like, no, I meant college, honey. I meant college.
He didn't specify. That's on him. That's on him.
Yeah. So basically, I knew that it was time for me to start looking. I guess the money was something, but it was more about me doing something. Like my husband was like, you just can't be at home. What are you going to do? I spent a lot of time printing out recipes and trying new things, but the blogging world was a lot smaller back then. I knew that there was a potential in making money, but it was more about just starting something, doing something. And so I started when my youngest son was a junior in high school, and I tried to do it all myself from just the very little nuts and bolts of it. I really tried to do it that way, but it wasn't successful that way. I learned the hard way that I needed to get help, but we're going to talk about that later, I know. And then my mom was suffering from Alzheimer's, and we're a family that loves to cook and bake. When I was growing up, we would talk about what we were having for dinner at breakfast. So that's the kind of family we were. My mom was from a very large family, one of 14 kids, and her sisters and all of them baked together. I remember just big barbecues, lots of food, lots of potlucks. And so I just wanted to save some of her recipes and I wanted a place to put them. So that's why I started the blog, and the rest is history.
As a mom whose youngest is now getting ready to start college, life's going to change. I really appreciate your insight into, I just needed something to do. And for a lot of people, it is the money. They're seeking the money. But for a lot of people, it's just maybe a hobby that they want to start or something that they would like to earn money doing, but they don't even know where to begin. So I know technology, we always laugh about technology because it's your nemesis. So what would you tell someone who says, okay, maybe I'm 50 plus, I want to start a blog, but I'm terrified of the technology. Can you give us any insight into how to overcome that?
Yeah, 2 words, get help. I seriously tried to set up stuff on my own. I researched stuff. I don't think there was as many resources. Everyone knows who Sally's Baking Addiction is. I reached out to her and she responded to me about, here, set it up with this host. And she gave me just like a few little things. And so I went with that. And it's just, I'm not a programmer. I don't know. There's so many things you need to know. I thought it would be easier. And I would stay up till midnight just trying to do it myself. And it all needed to be redone. It wasn't a total waste of time because I was trying to challenge my brain. But in the end, I had to redo everything that I did at the beginning. I had to get help. Even the very early help that I got, I had to redo that by getting different help. It's just been a process. And so I think no matter where you are, I'd say get help. But as someone my age, like our brains just don't think the same way.
It's true. It's true. And being willing to get help, especially if you're a more independent person, for a lot of people, that can be really tough. It's, oh, I've failed if I can't do this thing. No, it just means you're really good at recipes, but maybe technology isn't your favorite thing. So that's where you go and you find someone that can help you. And I appreciate how you said Sally from Sally's Baking Addiction. If you know anything about the food space, she's a pillar in the food community. And that's one thing I love about food bloggers and why I honed in so much with my website design business on helping food bloggers. Most of the time in the blogging world, it's very dog eat dog. I'm here, it's for myself, but there's a camaraderie that I've really seen in the food blogging space that I think is so refreshing. And yes, it's a very saturated market. But the fact is, I don't know how many people are on this earth, how many billions of people, and we all have to eat at least 3 times a day. Some of us prefer to eat more than that. So at the end of the day, it's really not a competition because everybody's going to be eating and they're all going to be looking for recipes. So if I were starting a blog tomorrow, I would absolutely start a food blog because it has the most potential for being monetized or making money from it. Now, with your food blog, does most of your income come from ads and an ad network income?
Yes, pretty much 100%. I have a little bit of Amazon affiliates, a little bit of Meta, but the majority comes from ads.
And that's really encouraging for people who are like, I don't know if I want to learn how to create cookbooks and all these other resources. I just want to put my recipes out there. You can absolutely do that and say, I'm going to go all in on the recipes, and you can earn a really nice income doing that. What other things would you share that you wish someone had told you when you first started?
The mastermind has been really key. The girls are younger than me, but they've fully accepted me. I guess I'm the grandmother. There's one other girl that has grandchildren, but they've really guided me. I've learned so much from them. Just even yesterday we talked and I asked a few questions about something I'm working on. And yeah, I got home and I took notes because I always tell them, I don't know how much I'm helping them. I think the biggest thing I do to help them is ask a lot of questions. And I do think sometimes asking questions then helps someone else because maybe they hadn't even thought of that question to ask. But they've been really key and we've been able to meet in person. I haven't been able to do as many events as I'd like, conferences and stuff, but we have met several times. And it's just great being able to see people in person when you talk to them on Zoom every couple of weeks. Yeah, get help, join a mastermind. I think also I worked for 2 years for free and I ended up spending money. So we were an expense on the income statement. My blog expense on the income statement for the first couple of years or a little over that. And eventually I was able to qualify for the ads I wanted. I didn't want to go on to a smaller ad network. So I really waited and it paid off. You just got to be patient and just keep creating content. I think sometimes people think there's a shortcut, but it's just create good content and then it will happen. So that's what I've been doing.
I think that's brilliant because you always hear somebody's got this hack or this shortcut to things. And there are certainly ways that you can shorten the length of time. So let's say it took you 2 years. I'm sure there are things that you would tell somebody, like you said, get help. I would say you could cut off a year right out of the gate, just because if you had known a year prior all the people that you could reach out to help you, that's a year of time that you no longer have to account for. So if you took that 2 years down to 1 year, okay, that's a significant difference in what you're earning. And I think that's an important conversation for people, especially if this is their first attempt at their own business. It's very common to be in the red for your first year because everything is front loaded. Time, money, because of course we think money, but a lot of it's your time spent learning. It's a really steep learning curve at first, but that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And I think just encouraging people, regardless of your age, but especially if you're older and you feel like, oh, I should know how to do this, not necessarily. And just because it's something you're faced with doesn't mean you have to be the one to do it. So finding some people, whether they're your age or different ages, like you said in your mastermind with some of the ladies that are younger than you, I think there's so much value that everybody brings to it. Providing the group with questions that they may not have even thought of is bringing a very valuable contribution. And even if you're like, I don't even know what a mastermind is, I'm just wanting to start putting my recipes out there. My suggestion, and I'm sure that Sue's suggestion would also be, just do it, just try it, but be willing to give yourself time to do it.
Yeah. And there are a ton of free resources out there. There's so many podcasts like this one. There's so many free resources that you can learn so much just on your own and you don't have to spend money to do it. But one of the things from my mastermind, Lynn's the one that introduced me to you. If I had to do it over again, I would have been like, find someone right away to do the whole design. And so, and I know it's expensive, but that would have just saved me so much time. If someone's looking to start a new blog now, I'd say just get some professional design elements in it.
Yeah, because there are things about your website that obviously you need to know how to do on a continual basis, but there's other things that you don't need to know. Once they're set up, they're set up. And that's the kind of stuff I always suggest to someone, hire out, get somebody to do it, because you can find it relatively cheap for this person to do this thing. But when you're first starting, like we said, sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. And so finding someone that can maybe be a mentor for you, or that you can just ask questions and you can say, I'm just starting out. What would your recommendation be for this? And you can find a lot of information on the internet. There is so much helpful content. And like you said, obviously that's part of what this podcast is for, is to help people if they're like, okay, I'm just starting on this journey and there's a lot of facets of running a business. But the other thing I would say is you don't have to know everything on day one.
Exactly.
There are things you'll learn as you go and get good at something and then add another layer. I think you and I have talked about that before.
And there are certain things that I just won't even attempt. I'll be like, I am definitely going to find someone to help me with that. And it's going to save me money because time is money. And
yes,
I would rather spend my time creating content versus trying to figure out some coding thing that I will never learn.
Right.
You do
Mhm.
need to find someone in a professional basis to figure some things out. There are certain things you have to hire out.
Agreed. Yeah. Figure out what you need to know. And I talked with another friend on another episode about that. It's figure out what you don't know and then either learn the thing or hire out the thing. And there are people, whether we're talking about a mentor, a running buddy, somebody that could just come alongside and say, hey, I'm starting this out. You want to start it out with me? So if nothing else, we're kind of lost together. It's more fun to be lost with somebody than to be lost alone. And so I think knowing that A, it's okay to ask for help.
Mhm.
B, find people that are good at what they do. C, most people have done these things by trial and error, and they're happy to share what they've learned along the way, which is what makes the food blogging community so special, in my opinion. You and I have talked before. You also suffer from a disability, and this has been part of what pointed you in the direction of doing something from home on your time frame that allowed you flexibility when you needed it. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have chronic foot issues. And let's see, I started in 2016, and then in 2017, I had something happen and I was laid up for probably a year and a half, actually using a knee scooter in the house for about a year. And I was able to just keep going. So I photographed, I cooked, I did everything from a chair. And then I used the knee scooter when I needed to. But I had another thing happen a little over a year ago. Same thing. We actually redid our kitchen between the two things so that I could maneuver the kitchen easier if it happened again. I have chronic plantar fasciitis and it's disabling for me, not everybody. So the other thing is that I've managed to work around it and work through it, but it's also given me purpose. It's just,
Yes.
I think people that have something happen in their lives and they can't do their job, it's just so much harder. So for me to be able to continue it, and yes, I can't go to all the conferences, I can't do all that kind of thing, but I can order my groceries, I can sit at my computer and figure out recipes and create new things and make them all from a chair and photograph them all from a chair if I need to. It's not every day. It's different every day. So it's really given me a purpose to keep going. And I'm very relieved that I've had that.
That's amazing. There's so many people that have stories we never hear about. And that's okay because some people want to keep their stories a bit more private. And that is completely at everyone's discretion how much they want to share about their story. But thank you for sharing that because I know that anytime you deal with something that is not what we would consider the norm, it can be a little scary to talk about. But I love that in a lot of ways, food has helped you heal, whether that was emotionally or mentally through something that you're dealing with physically.
Yes, the chair that I have on is it's a chair, it's an office chair on like rollerblade wheels. So it's pretty genius. I can go around my whole kitchen with it.
Wow.
Yeah, it really has been instrumental. It's my chair. I tell everybody, don't sit in my chair.
Now, for the people saying, okay, maybe I'm older, maybe I have a special need of some sort or a disability of some sort, do you still think it's worth it in today's market? Would you still encourage them to start or would you say, nope, it's too saturated? What would your thoughts be?
I still think it's worth it. There's just so many ways to find your little niche. And mine, I don't really have a small niche. Mine is just everything. And I even post travel things on there. But I do think there's room for everybody. I think that there's just like unique ways of doing things. I think that you can be creative and you can find an audience. And maybe you just have a really good Instagram page. Maybe you have an audience that communicates with you and gives you good feedback. And then you can try to find a way for them to get over to your blog in some way. So there's a lot of ways, just like food trends. There's like food trends that happen. And then pretty soon we're going to have another new cooking device. There was an Instant Pot, air fryer. So you just never know. If you jump in and you go all in, I think you can find a way.
I think so too. I would agree with that. And I think one of the biggest things that someone would need coming into it would be persistence. Apparently, I'm on a P train here. That didn't come out right, but
Yeah.
patience and persistence and willingness to pivot as needed. I think those are three critical things that no matter what type of business you're starting, you need to be able to do. You have to be persistent, especially at the beginning. You've got to be patient and persistent. You got to keep going and keep doing the thing because you know it's going to result in dividends. It may take a minute, it may take a year, it may take 2 years. So be willing to give yourself the gift of some time. And if it's from a financial perspective, you have to have a certain amount of money coming in, give yourself a timeline. This isn't the most traditionally secure type of a job, but you can give yourself some security in knowing, okay, I'm going to go for a year. I'm going to go for 2 years, whatever your time frame is. Give yourself that amount of time. And at the end of that, reflect back, decide if it's still worth doing. And if it is, go back to your persistence and your patience and keep going. Because honestly, it always seems like just when I get the urge to quit something, it seems like if I just push through a little bit, something happens that really changes the game. And for me, it was being willing to pivot in my business because I've had several shifts in my business that were crucial, I think, to my success. So I think the biggest thing that I would say to anyone, regardless of age, but especially those who are older, is just be willing to try. At the end of the day, you will have nothing to regret if you try.
Yeah, I had some moments where I thought about quitting, to be honest, because I wasn't hitting that threshold for ads. And I was like, oh my gosh, how long am I going to have to work for free? Starting it later in life also gave me the option because I was a stay-at-home mom. I wasn't making any money anyway. So for me, it was worth it. And to be honest, I'm making more than I've ever made. Obviously, I worked a long time ago, but still, I'm making way more than I ever made. So it's nice. I didn't do it for the money, but it makes me feel proud to be making more money each year.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Food Bloggers Table. I'm your host, Jennifer Holt, and I look forward to serving you in the next episode.